Hi, I'm not a professional vlogger, nor do I intend becoming a professional vlogger, and therefore I will not do this subscribe business. I simply want to report about my recent attempt to move over from DSLR to mirrorless. Despite the research I did beforehand, I found out things that just didn't come up. So I want to share that with you guys. Most of what I say applies generally across the board to any mirrorless, but some of it will apply specifically to the model which I purchased, which is the Fujifilm X-T4. The reason I chose the X-T4 was two reasons. One is I just like that beautiful look of the old style dials, aperture ring that moves, nostalgia, I guess, for the good old days. My very first SLR. Where do you put the film in again? Somewhere here. And the other reason is that with the Fujifilm X-T4 you can totally separate exposure settings between video and still shooting, which is very, very useful when doing both at an event. My general photography is event photography, and I also do a little bit of nature hiking on the side as a hobby. One of my motivations for moving over to mirrorless was to lower the weight and size of gear that you take while hiking. But I found some other quirks and things that I basically decided that I'm not going to be using mirrorless for outdoors, and definitely not to take over my event photography, which I had hoped might happen. First, I'll speak about the things that I really did like about the mirrorless. One is the ability to see through the viewfinder, the exposure and white balance preview, which you see through the viewfinder as you're shooting. That was very nice, but that only applies outdoors, ambient light, when you're not using flash. For indoor photography, when you're using flashes and the ambient light is way, way lower than what you're exposing for, there's another setting that you need to use on the camera, and that is to override the exposure and white balance preview, and that way the camera boosts the image of the ambient light through the viewfinder. But I found this to be very precarious, and often was seeing pure white through the viewfinder instead of being able to see what I was meant to be photographing. One other point to take in mind in terms of event photography is that the Canon system allows 5 groupings of flashes separately, whereas the Fuji allows only 3 groupings of flashes. Also when you're using an independent flash system such as Godox. Another thing I liked about the mirrorless was the ability to play back the image immediately through the viewfinder. I found the visibility very clear in terms of checking out flash ratios and seeing whether people had closed eyes or not. This might be a personal problem, but I also feel like a bit of an idiot when I do the chimping looking at the LCD at the back of the camera, so that was great. What I didn't like about the mirrorless is, everybody knows it, and I also knew it before I purchased one, but it didn't hit me until I started using it, and that is the battery usage. The chewing through the batteries is unbelievable compared to DSLR. Whereas with the DSLR I could happily go hiking for 3 days on one battery. That same 3 days hiking would require probably 4 or 5 batteries. So that's definitely a down that has to be considered. The other thing I found about using it for outdoor photography is that it is very susceptible to dust on the sensor. Almost every time I changed lenses, I got a new dust spot on the sensor. So basically that is, I think, ruled out mirrorless for me using outdoors. So that's it. I hope this was useful and gave you some food for thought.